Happy Tuesday and welcome to my favorite week of the year. It's NCAA Tournament week, bracketology galore. We'll have plenty to talk about that on the show later today. But first I want to introduce the panel of regulars. LaVar Arrington,
Hi.
Dan Steinberg, Jason Reid. I'm your host, Jonathan Forsythe. Thanks for joining us on Post Sports Live. Got a lot to get into today. We'll start local before we get to the NCAA Tournament. We're going to go with the Redskins. 1 week into free agency, we'll give out some grades. What are they still missing? We'll also look at the NFC East, what other teams in the division have done well and haven't done well. We'll talk about the Wizards and assessing their standing on the Eastern Conference at the 5 spot right now, and whether or not they can jump Chicago or Toronto into that 3rd spot. And then we'll talk about the Capitals, who are also embarking on a big West Coast trip, a brutal stretch for the Caps, and on the heels of this news about Brooks Laich being out for 4 to 6 weeks. So we'll talk about how many points they need to get out of this 3-game stretch in California. And finally, we'll wrap up with some bold predictions about NCAA Tournament. Mr. Steinberg's got the public bracket most everybody has seen by now, filling the role of Mr. Kornheiser. And who did it the last couple years? Tracy Hamilton did it the last couple years. Picked Kansas every year to win it. Yeah. So we'll go through those picks and upset specials and all that stuff. So if you haven't filled out a bracket, maybe you'll get some nuggets from us to guide you along the way. All right, first things I want to start with is free agency and the Redskins. Mr. Reid, I want to start with you. And you wrote a column about the Hatcher signing, but I want to talk about sort of free agency as a whole, the additions for the Redskins. What do you think what grade would you give them to date?
Right now, I'd probably say a C, for this reason. You know, when you're 3-13 and you finish last 6 out of 8 years, obviously you have a lot of holes to fill. And to me, the secondary was an area where they really needed to address. Now, the Hatcher signing, what their betting is, as bad as they've been defensively, what their betting is that Hatcher, who's an interior rush guy, or in a 3-4, he's going to be an end, is going to combine with Arakpo and Ryan Kerrigan to give you such a consistent pass rush that essentially it almost won't even matter who you have back there. I mean, it'll matter, but you know. So that, I mean, and if you have a formidable rush, clearly that's going to help you on the back end of your defense. My concern though is Hatcher's 32. Guy had never had more than 4.5 sacks before he had 11 last year. Guy, he's got agility, quickness, strength, all that. And 11 sacks from an interior rush position as a 4-3 alignment is incredible. But I just wonder, can this guy even do something close to that again? And they're betting $10.5 million essentially on a guy who's about to be 32 years old. That's the guarantees and get all that money this year. Combined with Arakpo, what they're saying is Arakpo is going to become an elite pass rusher because they're paying him almost $11.5 million because they tagged him. They still don't have a guy opposite Perry Riley. The guys who they've signed, you're taking a flyer on a guy.
Role players.
Well, you're hoping that you can buy low and one of these guys is going to step up. One of the guys is a core special teams guy. The other guy is a guy who was with the Texans. You just don't know. They've never been a proven successful full-time starter. So that's defensive. Offensive, they signed this guard from Cleveland. I've heard mixed things about him. They're negotiating with Penn, the tackle from Tampa Bay. Bottom line is anybody would be an upgrade over Columbus. And then, they signed the Roberts, the wide receiver. Maybe he helps. You bring back Tana, a veteran guy. Maybe he's got a little something left in the tank. My point is, when you have as many holes as they do, they didn't make an impact signing in the secondary. The impact signing on defense, Hatcher, 32 years old, you don't know. So I think their pass rush should be improved, but you don't know. Offensively, I still have a lot of questions. And at the end of the day, the biggest question, the biggest bump, and I know I got to hurry up here, is Robert going to be someone who takes a step forward in terms of being able to learn how to read defenses? Because really, all this other stuff is just window dressing. If he can't get it done as a drop back passer, which he's going to have to be, then they're starting all over in another couple of years. Anyway.
We're going to have plenty of time to talk about Griffin's offseason and his what he needs to work on this year. But LaVar, give me your grade. Would you agree with Jason on the C grade so far for the free agency?
I did give a C grade, and the reason why I gave a C grade was because it seems as though they have a confidence in the personnel that they have. So if they weren't a 3-win team, I could give them a higher grade for retaining the guys. I will commend them for signing guys that have been a part of this organization and bringing them back. But the reason why I would give a C is because it's a 3-win team, and your biggest signs came by keeping guys on roster not in free agency. Hatcher, I think, is an improvement. I think he is an improvement and an upgrade. And I agree with Jay Reid. I think they believe that the same philosophy they had this year, which didn't work, but they felt as though if they could generate a pass rush, stop the run, that they wouldn't have to be as strong in the secondary. I don't subscribe to that. So I don't think that they've made their team better by a whole lot. I think Hatcher makes their defensive front better. I don't know that their secondary is better. Actually, I would assume that their secondary is not better at this moment in time. And so since you haven't improved a very key part of your defense and on offense, again, I think it's more about RG3 than it is anything else. If Roberts is the guy, he's the guy. But I just don't think they did anything that really improved this team or hurt it. So I give a C grade because that's right in the middle.
Dan, what grade do you give them?
C seems to be the popular grade. I mean, that both of their analyses seem sound to me. I think the one thing that you would always kind of be risky when you're talking about free agency is you don't know what a team's plans are in the draft, who they might be targeting. I think with the Redskins, obviously, it's not quite the same situation because they don't have that first-round pick, which, when you're such a bad team, would be a really high pick where you would assume you'd be getting a starter. But I think, like, with the linebacker position you're talking about, it's not inconceivable that they're taking a guy in the second round and thinking that guy is the starter as a rookie. So I think we have to see what they're going to do, and I would certainly imagine they're going to sign more guys before this whole thing wraps up. But as of right now, there do seem to be some holes. And Roberts, as much as they tout his potential and how he wasn't super, he's often a number 3 guy last year. He is not the kind of big name wide receiver that a lot of people thought they might be targeting.
What does, in the last 40 seconds that we have, guys, Jason, what they've done to date in free agency say about what they're going to go after for the draft, do you think?
Well, I think, as Steins mentioned, you're going to probably look for an inside linebacker. Mm-hmm. You're probably going to look for, they're probably going to draft a safety, I would imagine.
Mm-hmm. Got to be a wide receiver in there too, right?
Probably. I mean, those are areas that you still see. Look, they were 3 and 13. There are a lot of areas they could go.
Do you agree?
I would say you can't get a pulse on what it is that they're thinking to do, because it would just make a ton of sense to sign a safety immediately, and they did not.
Because you know why they didn't, and I know I got to wrap this up, because it's what you started off by saying. They have a lot of confidence in their people, which to me that's a questionable.
That's questionable, especially with a new coach.
3 and 13 confidence. All right. Well, we'll see. One of the things that hasn't been a lot of continuity in the defense and the personnel over the years. We'll see if this changes.
It's true. Like bad continuity is also continuity.
That's true. All right. Let's move on to the Wizards, guys. And I wanted to. They're also off to the West Coast, but they have a much more manageable West Coast swing than the Capitals do. They're coming off 2 wins in a row. Big one over Brooklyn over the weekend. I want to assess sort of the standing in the NBA Eastern Conference. And Dan, I'll start with you on this. The Wizards face Sacramento, Portland, and the Lakers, and then Denver, 4-game West Coast stretch. Tell me where you think they'll finish. Right now they're 35 and 31, game and a half behind Chicago, and a couple games back of Toronto for that 4th and 3rd spot. Do you see that changing at all down the stretch?
You know what I think is going to change? And I think that I have been accused and the media have been accused of being overly optimistic about local teams, but I'm going to do it again. I can't help it. I think that the Wizards will overtake the Bulls, and I think they'll play each other in the first round, but I think the Wizards will be 4 and the Bulls will be 5. That'll be a rematch of the only series that the Wizards have won in the playoffs in my adult lifetime, which was against the Bulls in 2005, I think. I just think the Wizards' schedule still sets up really well for them. One of the big question mark games was that Brooklyn game. They had every reason to lose that game. They were down by double digits. I think they were down by 9 in the 4th quarter, and they found a way to win. Same thing in Orlando. They were down 6 with a minute left. I mean, that's a game that they could have easily lost, and they won it. And the schedule is just really, really weak. So I think they're going to play well enough to overtake the Bulls and finish with the 4 seed.
Wow. Steinberg being optimistic on the local teams, continuing to be the anti-Kornheiser in town. All right, Mr. Reid.
I mean, they're playing well, and they're winning games without this guy. We thought they couldn't win without.
Who knew? Jay, would you agree? You think that they have a chance to get a home court in the first round?
I agree with Steins. I mean, you look at what they've been able to do with Nene out. Ariza stepped up his game. John's become a star. Beal has, he's got the ankle, but he's played very well too. Gortat has been just out of his mind. They got to resign that guy. So yeah, I agree with Steins. I mean, I would not be shocked if they, with the schedules they have remaining, it's always on paper. You actually obviously have to go out there and play the teams, but with the way it looks on paper and with what they've accomplished so far, I agree with Steins. I think they might be able to overtake the Bulls and finish fourth.
All right, 2 bullish takes on the Wizards.
Bullish.
For getting bullish. There you go. No pun intended.
I want to change
What do you
the
got, LaVar?
tide. I look at the way 2 players are playing, and it doesn't allow me to feel the comfort of saying that it's a runaway that they'll overtake the Bulls. That's Drew Gooden and it's Trevor Ariza. The way Trevor Ariza is playing and the way he's shooting, you can't assume that he's going to be able to maintain that type of shooting percentage. You can't assume that Drew Gooden is going to continue to be the boost that he's been since signing to this team. So for that, call me a skeptic. But
Skeptic.
Yeah, all right. Well, there it is. You're a Kappa.
There we go. It's bleeding into the show now.
The interesting thing is that I don't see them, even with the schedule not being overly difficult. I just can't see them playing at that high of a level the rest of the way with those 2 guys being really, in essence, Ariza is your most productive player for this team.
With that said, Jason, you touched on this before with Gortat. I have a quick question in the last minute that we have. Gortat, Ariza, 2 key players down the stretch here and have proven themselves to be very valuable to the team this year. Both free agents at the end of the year. Who is the priority for the team? Gortat or Ariza if they had to choose one?
You have to sign Gortat. You have to because Rennie. I was supposed to say Rennie. Because Nene, he's going to miss games. I mean, the guy's proven that since he's going to miss games. You have to sign Gortat. I mean, if they don't sign Gortat.
And like you talked about in your column, there's just such a overflow at that one position right now, which basically keeps Otto Porter, the number 3 pick, not playing at all in his rookie season. Right. And you look at guys play in the rookie seasons, he doesn't play at all anymore, basically.
Then Gortat's the one. How big a priority then secondarily is Ariza to
I
get
think
back?
Ariza has played himself into that consideration. I think that you would be foolish not to try to re-sign him and make it a priority to re-sign him because he's shown on a top-tier team that he can be a go-to guy when he was in Los Angeles. He came here, and now he's playing true to form like he did when he was there. I think you have to make it a priority.
We're jumping ahead of ourselves. We'll have plenty of time to talk about
that.
Yeah, please.
The standings. I think that probably, at this point, they've got 16 games left. They probably have to win 10 or 11 games to get that 4 seed that I was talking about. If they do that, we're talking 45, 46, 47 wins.
They haven't done that
since. They had 45 wins, I think, once with Arenas, but they haven't done 46 since the early 80s, I believe, maybe in the late 70s. Yeah. So, it's
even a couple weeks ago, I couldn't imagine we'd be talking like that right now. I mean, they've been great since Nene went down. Go figure. All right, let's move on to the Capitals, guys. You did say that. You guys were both very optimistic when that happened.
Though.
I thought that they would struggle. I thought they'd struggle for 500. Let's talk about the Caps, and Dan, I'll start with you on this. First of all, can the Caps overcome the loss of Brooks Laich down the stretch?
Yeah, I don't think that's what's going to make or break this season, honestly. They've been playing largely without him for a week anyhow. Yeah, for 2 years, yeah. I think the biggest question with the Laich injury is, does that put him in play as like a compliance buyout kind of guy where he's been battered and beaten up for seasons now, and he makes a lot of money. I don't know. He's a really popular player. He's a great leader to the extent that those things matter, but he's not on the ice very much, and he's not scoring goals very much. So I think that's kind of the interesting question with that. With whether they can make a run here, I think it's going to take probably an Ovechkin scoring run, and it's going to take Halak being what he's been, which has been a really solid above-average goalie. And they're going to need some breaks. They're going to need some help from the teams above them in the standings.
And they don't play the teams that right above them in the standings either, which is interesting.
They play a lot of Western teams,
13 games left in the season. Jason, they play at Anaheim, at LA, and at San Jose, a brutal stretch, 3 of the top teams in the West. How many points do they need to come out with out of a possible 6 to remain in the playoff hunt after this stretch, do you think?
4?
Yeah.
I mean, you look legitimately.
Jeez.
They're in trouble.
Oh yeah.
So you're talking about those 3 teams are great teams. So it's probably not realistic to think that they're going to get 4 points out of those games, but they need to.
Only 3 of 15 teams that have played that California stretch this year have come away with 4 points or more.
There's one of those teams
the deck is stacked
Caps
against
haven't
them.
even won. Is it Anaheim or
San Jose?
San Jose.
Yeah, they haven't even beat San Jose, so ever.
So do you agree it's 4 points to stay in the mix? They're 2 points behind the Rangers for the last playoff spot right now.
I just think the deck is stacked against them because a lot of these teams, as it's been mentioned, they own the head-to-head type, the points or whatever, and
Regulation wins.
right. I just think they're in an uphill battle that it's the most inopportune time to have to play this difficult of a schedule, and then you come back and you have to play Boston. It's not.
And they play the Kings again.
It's not. Yeah, it's not a very.
It's
It's not a forgiving stretch for them.
The thing about
I don't
it
think
is,
it's
if
realistic.
somehow they do get those 4 points that you're talking about, then they're coming back here. They still, after that, they still probably would have to go like 7-3, maybe 6-3-1, something like that to get that 92-point threshold, which people are talking about. So even if they do win 2 games on the road with this tough stretch,
I don't know.
it's still,
I don't see it happening.
But I mean, and we've
won 2
seen
in a
this
row.
every year. If
Oh my gosh, Vancouver and who? Who else?
Toronto, which is it's a very similar team to the Cavs. I was going to say, if somehow they do go on a run, it would require them playing extremely excellent hockey for a month, which then, I mean, whatever. If you're going to the playoffs, you want to be playing great, and if they make it the playoffs somehow, they would be playing great at that point. But it's a
We've seen that before. Them play great at the end.
feat right now. Yeah, no, you're
Didn't
right.
necessarily
Not
turn into a
against
run
these
in the
type of
postseason.
teams.
All right, well, look at
would
that.
earn
We
it if
hit
they
right
make
on the
it.
mark for the Cavs.
They
Good
would
job,
earn it.
guys. Let's turn our attention to the NCAA tournament. And Dan, you filled out the bracket. It makes sense to sort of start here with, there you go.
My
There's
bracket? Look
there's
at
a
that.
super big
proudest
bracket
moment.
with
Proudest moment of my
Dan's
career
third grade
there.
handwriting there.
Third grade.
Yeah,
You picked Florida, not exactly. You had to.
Good job. I got Louisville winning the whole thing, but good job.
Oh, all right. Are you giving him props? How was it to sort of have your bracket blown up for everybody?
You know what? First
was
of all,
the
I
pressure
had an
like on that?
incredibly enjoyable time, and like you, I think people of our general demographic have a huge
What
fondness.
does that mean, Dan?
Late 30s dudes, late 30s suburban guys. What?
Just asking, I'm just asking, Dan.
I love college basketball more than anything else. I think that
our
you do, too.
demographic
I don't know
for the
that.
most part. It's correct.
okay.
I agree with you.
I had a great time doing it. I guess I have a little bit of regret as to how it turned out because I went right away with Florida, Louisville, Michigan State. Felt okay with the 2 4 seeds, but everyone has those 3 teams in the Final Four. Those are easily the 3 most popular teams in the bracket. So I feel a little bit of too much of a cliche on those 3 picks. But
Nobody has Arizona getting out the West. I'm shocked about that.
All right. Well, let's
I'm not a Pac-10 guy, man.
let's go region by
Pac-12,
region.
Pac-12.
Let's go region by region, gentlemen. And Mr. Reid, I'll start with you. Let's start in the top left, the South. What team do you have coming out of the South?
Out of the South, I have Florida.
You got Florida. You're with Dan.
I have
Dan, you've
Florida.
got Florida.
I have Florida.
LaVar?
Kansas.
LaVar's got Kansas.
Oh.
All right. You got the 2 seed. I also have Florida, so we're 3 out of 4 on Florida there. Let's go to the East. Virginia is the 1 seed. No one's respecting Virginia as a 1 seed at all. I love that. All right, Jason, what do you got coming out of the East?
Who did I put down? Who did I give you?
Who did you give us?
Yeah.
I don't know. You gave me
have-
somebody.
you have Michigan
Oh,
State.
Michigan
then
State,
you
I'm
got
sorry.
Michigan State.
I'm sorry, I got
I
Michigan
gotta
State.
say, I didn't want to, give you some time. I have Michigan State. That's a no-brainer.
I phoned my picks in yesterday.
All right, okay.
I have
Michigan State, and Dan, you have.
You know, I also had
State as
Michigan
well.
State. Again, it's very cliche boring. I'll say the interesting thing I had is I've got Michigan State beating Connecticut to get to the Final
Yeah,
Four.
Connecticut
in the
you have
final
going
game, but-
pretty far. I've got Iowa State coming out of the East, and I also
Really?
don't have Virginia. I'm really intrigued to pick Virginia. I think that Virginia-Michigan State game is going to be such a big one in the Sweet 16. I hope it happens. It'll be a great game. But I have Iowa State coming out of there. They can score with anybody in the country. All right, let's go to the West. Who do you got in the West, Jason?
I got the Pac-10 regular season champ Arizona coming out. It's just amazing to me how no one is like giving them any credit that Wisconsin's going to win that. No, there's no. I got Arizona.
Who's saying Wisconsin? There are a lot of people saying Wisconsin.
Oh, a lot
aren't
of people say Steins is saying
Well,
Wisconsin.
Steins is one of the few people picking Wisconsin.
No,
I haven't seen a lot of people picking
Wisconsin's
Wisconsin.
a hot pick to come
Are
out of
they?
there. Oh yeah, there's a lot.
All right.
lot of action on Wisconsin.
All right, so you got Arizona. Dan's got Wisconsin. You like
have
that
Creighton.
pick?
I hate that pick. I hate that pick.
Dan hates the Wisconsin pick.
No. I'm okay with Wisconsin. I hate the Creighton.
Oh, you hate the
I hate
Creighton.
Creighton.
Yeah, I hate the
You got Creighton. I also have Creighton, actually.
I hate
McDermott,
that
huh?
pick.
Doug McDermott. Hey, you know what? I think that's a pretty wide open bracket. Actually, I think
I do, too.
I think anything can happen. In
You know what? I pick my conference a lot, and Michigan in the final game last year really helped me out, and so I'm going to stick with. That's why I stuck with. I got Wisconsin, Michigan State in the Final Four.
Oh, you're going Big
two
Ten.
teams, yeah.
Oh, good things for the Terps next year. Anyway, all right, Midwest. What do you got out of the Midwest, Jason?
Oh, I mean,
This is the team, the
Look.
bracket of death.
Look, I know that they didn't have a great, a great non-conference schedule. I get all that, But I see the way Louisville's playing right now, and with that press, and they got Russ Smith who can knock down the threes. I'm going Louisville.
You're going Louisville, Dan. You also have.
I also had Louisville, and I would like to see them play Kentucky in the second round.
That'd be a heck of a fun game. That'd be in the Sweet 16,
I mean,
right?
the Sweet 16, yeah.
What do you got, LaVar?
Yeah, I have Cal Poly. Take Cal Poly. No, I'm going with Duke.
Greg Manifold's.
I'm going with an old school blue blood basketball team.
Duke.
I'm taking Duke. The
Jabari
tournament is
Parker-led
a different.
freshman.
That's a different animal.
All right. I'm going to go with Michigan, the team that was the runner-ups last year to Louisville in the championship game. I'll take Michigan. Doesn't seem like a lot of people are taking Michigan out of that region. I like Michigan coming out of there. They had that run. They almost won the Big Ten regular season, almost won the championship.
A lot of people watched them get destroyed on Sunday.
They got destroyed on Sunday, but hey, I think that was a wake-up call for them. All right, Jason, so let's run down your Final Fours. I think we have them on a sheet here. Your Final Four is Florida, Michigan State, Arizona, and Louisville.
The Cardinals.
There you go. Oh, look at that. They've got the photos. That's sweet.
cool.
Man, our producers are pretty good on this show, aren't
cool,
they?
yeah.
And Dan's, we know yours. You got Florida, Michigan State, Wisconsin, Louisville. LaVar, your Michigan State, Kansas,
Yep.
Yeah, you should have
Creighton,
And
and
Duke.
Duke.
That's correct.
And then mine are Florida also, Iowa State, Creighton, and Michigan.
You definitely have the worst.
I definitely have the worst. I always come in last of these things.
Well.
Jason, who's your champ?
Try something different.
I'm going with a repeat winner, Louisville.
Louisville to repeat.
Wow.
Dan, you've got
I
big
have
one
Florida
right
beating
behind us?
Louisville.
Florida over Louisville in the
Yeah.
final.
I have Big Ten Spartans.
You got
Go ahead,
Spartans
bring
winning
on
it.
home, Big Ten.
I'll take Iowa State to win it all
That's
in the championship
awful.
game. There you go. That's awful, according to Steinberg. I love when I elicit that reaction out of you. All right, let's go to upsets, guys. Identify an upset in each region. South, Jason, give me an upset.
Is this good television? Web television?
I think it is. Well,
If you have to ask that.
I got Danny Manning. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say it's another Danny Manning in the Miracles.
Uh-huh.
He's gonna beat UCLA. Coach of Tulsa, Danny Manning's gonna beat UCLA.
That's because you're a USC guy. All right.
what I'm saying.
I like that. I like that. 13/4. Dan, what do you got?
VCU's got a big injury, and Stephen F. Austin has 28. I think they've won 28 straight games, something like that. I'll take Stephen F. Austin. I didn't actually put that one up there, but I've got Stephen F. Austin.
All right,
beating
12/5.
VCU,
LaVar, give me an upset out of the South.
Western Michigan.
Western Michigan over Syracuse in Buffalo.
Yeah.
All right, that's bold. I actually take Dayton over Ohio State in that sort of interstate
That'd be a
upset.
big upset.
Very.
Heck yeah.
That's
All right,
what
let's
I'm
go down to
calling
the East. Jason, give me an upset out of the East.
I got one for you. Harvard over Cincinnati.
Ooh, that's another 12-5. Harvard, a team that won their first NCAA tournament game ever last year. Dan, what do you got?
I have the same one. I actually think that Harvard will beat Cincinnati. And, I should say my alma mater, University of Delaware, is in that side of the bracket playing against Michigan State.
The
and
Blue Hens.
I do not
That's right.
have them winning that game.
But you will be watching that game when that happens, right?
Sure, yeah.
Yeah.
Not with any more passion than any other
No.
You have to wear
Oh,
your Blue
come on,
Hens
man.
sweatshirt?
I do not own a single piece of Blue Hens apparel.
Are you serious?
I'm serious.
The Blue Hens are the state
great
bird
alarm
of
over here,
Delaware.
huh?
All right,
I'm going
LaVar,
with
what do you got?
Harvard.
You got Harvard
Yeah,
too?
Harvard.
3 are on
I'm going
Harvard?
Harvard.
I'll take Providence over North Carolina on
Terrible
that
pick.
line. All right,
like
there's another
that.
terrible
Terrible
one.
pick.
And the ACC's overrated. I'm done with them. I'm going to the Big Ten now. All right, let's go to the West. Who do you got out of the West as an upset, Jason?
New Mexico State versus San Diego.
All right, New Mexico State over San Diego State. Mm-hmm. Ooh, 13/4. Dan?
I actually love North Dakota State in this game. I have watched a lot of North Dakota State, which is actually true because of a fun little opportunity I had. I've watched a lot of North Dakota State games. I think they've actually got the best field goal percentage in the country, and I'm not high on Oklahoma, so I love that pick.
All right.
BYU is going to beat up on Oregon.
All right. I'll actually go to a second round upset here. I like Oklahoma State over your boys Arizona in the second round there. All right, let's go to the Midwest. Jason, give me an upset in the first round.
Yeah, he's
You're changing the rules.
I'm jumping around. You can make it an upset wherever you
I
want.
just didn't know
I'm
that
going to
was
give you a shocker,
All right.
in part because of where it's played, Raleigh, North Carolina. Mercer over Duke.
Oh, I love it.
How about that?
I love it.
How
How
about
come you
that?
don't
No
make
way.
fun of him when he makes calls like
No
that?
way.
All right, go ahead, Dan.
This is kind of a tough one to do because it's putting me out on a ledge before I even know who they're playing. But I kind of think that St. Louis could lose to whichever team it plays, either NC State or Xavier. I would prefer to see it be NC State because I think Warren's just one of the greatest scorers in the country. But St. Louis has kind of been stumbling down the stretch a little bit. I don't know. They lost to I think St. Bonaventure in the first round of the A-10. So I'm going to say whoever wins that playing game will beat.
That's
Iowa-
no one ever picks the play-in winners
I think
to
I
win
just said
anything.
4 12 seeds in a row. I
Yeah.
just said 4 12 seeds.
Iowa's going to send them home.
You like Iowa to beat Tennessee and then to beat UMass?
Yes.
All right, I'll take Arizona State over Texas in that one. All right, I think we hit the buzzer. We're probably running late. Any other final words of wisdom, pearls of
We're
wisdom?
skipping our tiebreaker.
NCAA tournament.
Oh,
Oh, I forgot about the tiebreaker. Of
do our
course, the
tiebreaker.
local tiebreaker. Here we go. We got time for it.
Wisdom.
We'll focus on the two teams within the District of
We
Columbia.
finish our
George Washington, which is what, an 8 seed, right?
a 9
George,
seed.
George Washington is a 9 seed. And the American University Eagles, who go to Milwaukee to face the number 2 seeded Wisconsin Badgers. Here's the question, Jason. What's more likely? Or you're breaking the tie, actually. Dan, what's more likely? AU to win 1 game to beat Wisconsin in Milwaukee, or 3 wins for GW to advance to the Elite 8 to beat not only Memphis, but then likely Virginia and possibly Michigan State? What's more likely?
I think it's actually a really even tiebreaker. I wonder what the odds would tell us. I'm going to say American because we would need magic to happen once. I think that GW obviously could do fine against Memphis, and even I could see them getting by Virginia or whoever they would play there. But it just seems the 3 games for a 9 seed that's battled a lot of injuries this year, has virtually no NCAA tournament experience. That just seems like a little bit of a too steep a hill to climb. But I think both of them are probably unlikely. I'll say American winning 1 game would be more likely.
LaVar, what do you think?
I would certainly agree that it is unlikely for either one to take place. Which one is more unlikely? I think it's more unlikely for American to beat Wisconsin in
So you're
Milwaukee.
saying it's more likely for George Washington.
So it's
you
more
choose
likely.
between-
I'm going by default. It's more likely that you'll see George Washington win those unwinnable games because Wisconsin will
GW
have
has some
already
talent,
won.
though. They've got some professional players on that roster for sure. What do you think?
Jason, break the tie.
The question is moot, okay? Because no, I'm just kidding. I would say the American thing is more likely.
So in a 1 game, lightning in a bottle, 1 time, even if it's in Milwaukee, I would agree with that. I think that AU beating, and I would even say AU is more likely than GW to win 2 games. I would even go back. You don't think so? You think GW beating Virginia is more likely
Yes.
than 1 win for AU?
Absolutely.
GW beat Creighton
It's highly unlikely that American
Upsets
will beat
happen.
Wisconsin.
GW beat Creighton this year. GW has talent.
Oh no, I know GW's legit, but Virginia's once again you're not giving them the credit that they deserve as a 1
Creighton in the
seed.
Final Four. I'm
You're the one that ran away from the ACC. Remember
that?
he ran away from the
I
ACC.
ran away.
Hey, on another
ahead,
note,
Jace.
how great was that thing on the Big East, huh?
Requiem for a Big East.
Was
We,
it-
well, the Post did a
I
did
saw
a piece
that was
last
outstanding
year.
too. Well,
Last year,
I'm
so
aware
we
of
beat
that.
them by a year.
Well, John, I'm aware of that. But that was just on Georgetown Circus, right?
That's correct.
Which
That's correct.
Steins
Just
actually
Georgetown
embedded in his piece again. Which I watched it again. It was really that thing was outstanding.
The filmmaker, Ezra Edelman, a local kid, actually referenced that piece and said that he did watch it and enjoyed
right
it.
on.
Yeah.
So it was actually outstanding.
I can't wait to watch it. It's on my to-do list for sure. All right, well, with that, hey, happy brackets, everybody. Happy NCAA holiday for Jason Reid, Dan Steinberg, LaVar Arrington. I'm your host, Jonathan Forsythe. I'd be quickly remiss. I should mention one last thing, totally unrelated to sports, but I just want to say a thank you to our outgoing video director, Andy Pergram, who, without him, all this surrounding studio and the upgrades for Post Sports Live would not have happened over the last couple of years. So Andy's off to another venture with McClatchy Newspapers. Best of luck to you. Thanks, Andy, for everything you've done for the
Andy.
show. All right, with that, we'll see you next Tuesday. Good luck to your brackets, everybody.
Good show.
Fun show.
I think so.
That was a good show.
How much